Welcome to Global Innovation. I am your host, Chris Graham. On our show today, we will focus on SIGGRAPH 2017, being held at the Los Angeles Convention Center on July 30th through August 3rd. Now, SIGGRAPH is the world's largest and most influential annual conference and exhibition in computer graphics and interactive techniques. 5 days of research results, demos, educational sessions, art, screenings, and hands-on interactivity featuring the community's latest technical achievements, and 3 days of commercial exhibits displaying the industry's current hardware, software, and services. Our guests today are the conference chair, Jerome, Dean of Cogswell College, and Pixar's Pol Jeremias, who chairs the Computer Animation Section. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Jerome, why don't we start off with a description of the theme for SIGGRAPH 2017?
So our tagline this year is at the heart of computer graphics and interactive techniques, because that's where we really feel that SIGGRAPH fits.
Okay, and when you're talking about that intersection, what is new and exciting about that intersection?
Well, I mean, what's new and exciting about the intersection is that computer graphics nowadays is really under what I would call sort of a renaissance. So there's just, what you see with computer graphics is that computer graphics is in so many different industries beyond just gaming and animation. So you'll see it in your everyday life. You might be looking at your a navigation system in your car and there's 3D graphics. You might buy a washer or dryer and there's 3D graphics. You know, there's just so much more application of computer graphics across many industries. It's just a big booming area.
Okay, and the conference itself, it's a pretty broad look at the industry. So walk us through some of the aspects of the conference, because I know there's exhibits and there's presentations.
Yeah, so SIGGRAPH started off really as a research and academic conference, but focused on how to do computer graphics, because at the beginning it was very difficult for people to take something very simple like to create a 3D shape. How do you program a computer to create a 3D shape? So there's a lot of research happening at SIGGRAPH in order to create those techniques. So SIGGRAPH covers anything related to computer graphics, related to the actual rendering, the interaction of computer graphics, and we have a strong focus on everything from research topics. So our research and technology area of the conference is one of the leading places to have your work published. So if you're a researcher, you want to if you get your work published in SIGGRAPH, it's a really big deal. You can get your PhD. And our Computer Animation Festival, which Paul is the director of, is a Oscar qualifying event.
Okay, and so we'll turn to the exhibition part of it in a minute, but walk us through some of the different types of presentations, because I understand there's panel discussions, an educators forum, and something called Birds of a Feather. So if you can just describe how those different types of presentations, if I was going to attend SIGGRAPH, the choices I have.
Yeah, so you would have a wide variety of choices in the areas of computer graphics. You might go to a panel that's talking about some new technology in order to render fire, in order how do you visualize fire from a technical viewpoint. There might be a presentation from a company like say Marvel presenting on the Avengers. So we have a lot of major studios that come to the conference. We have there might be a game company, say Epic Games might be presenting on some of their latest interactive gaming technology. And then there's other different parts of the conference. We have an art exhibit. We have a VR, a virtual reality village. So you'll see a lot of VR and augmented reality experiences there. And then we have some more communal portions of the conference, like Birds of a Feather, which are really about trying to get like-minded people together to talk about specific aspects. So we might have a meeting of people that are doing open source development in computer graphics, and that will be a Birds of the Feather group that will get together and talk about their interest. In addition, there's educator BOFs and groups that get together and talk about how do you do curriculum development for schools that are in these areas.
So it's not just for the commercial aspects of that particular industry, but also for the educator and the person who's looking to gain entry into that industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's quite a few different components of recruiting that happen at SIGGRAPH. There's a job fair. There's an exhibition floor where all the companies are. So we have a large exhibition floor where all the companies that produce software, hardware, and different types of technology for computer graphics will be presenting their work and their latest technology or software, and so they might be recruiting actually on the exhibition floor, your traditional job fair, as I mentioned before. And then we also are doing some new contributor events for sort of like high-end recruiting for more experienced people to have a place to network with companies and be recruited.
And the exhibition hall, since it's down in Los Angeles, I would imagine you have a lot of the studios that are participating?
Yeah, there's a lot of studios and companies and vendors that participate across the whole conference, depending on what type of work or information they want to present. So you might see a company that sells software in addition to being on the conference floor and the exhibition floor, but also presenting in a talk there. In the same way, you might see a studio doing a production session on their actual film that they made, in addition to being on the show floor. So there's quite a different avenues that companies and studios participate in the conference.
Okay, and Paul, tell us about your involvement in SIGGRAPH 2017.
Yeah, so I'm the Computer Animation Festival Director. And so the Computer Animation Festival has two big events this year. It has the Electronic Theater, which is the space where we show the best VFX breakdowns, short films, advertising, all this sort of like more on the traditional side of media. And then we have a new venue this year, the VR Theater, which is very similar to the Electronic Theater. So we're trying to mimic that experience of when you go and sit down for like an hour to watch all these state-of-the-art VFX breakdowns and short films, but in VR. So we created a new space where you can go and get your ticket, sit there for an hour, and kind of try to give attendees a glimpse of what's going on in the VR industry in just over 60 minutes. So we're going to have around 5 experiences that we're going to get them through in that hour, and hopefully we can help the industry move forward by showing the best that has been happening over the last 12 months. And apart from these two different events, we have another minor new thing this year, which is we're organizing as well Computer Animation Festival Directors Q&A, which is an opportunity for attendees and directors to be in the same room and hopefully to engage in a different conversation. And if an attendee had a question about the film that it saw the day before or the VR piece that it saw the day before, kind of try to engage, and like facilitate that conversation so the audience can ask something about the specific piece and directors can explain like how did they solve that specific problem, or even talk about like pipelines, how are pipelines different from student work, for example, to a like more professional work.
I mean, this is sort of an interesting point. I mean, Paul mentioned like the interaction with the directors, but I mean, of the talent that we have coming to the conference, there's probably at least like a dozen different animated feature film directors that are coming to the conference, 3 or 4 who have won Academy Awards. So there's really a lot of talent in the building, which is pretty interesting. And then we've got a new part of the Computer Animation Festival, which is sort of under Paul, but with Emily Sue, who's at Leica, which is a production art gallery, where studios are going to bring in actual physical like maquettes and props from different movies for our attendees to be able to enjoy. So there's a few different interesting aspects in the animated feature film area.
Well, in the area of VR, so you come from Cogswell College, and I know Cogswell has a real strong VR program teaching people new to the industry how to develop VR applications, and you come from Pixar, which is actually using them in developing consumer product. But where is VR going over the next 1, 5, 10 years? Right now it seems like an interesting piece of technology that really hasn't gained a lot of immediate traction in the consumer area.
Personally, I think that's why we are here in a way, is to facilitate the growth of the industry by creating conversations with attendees and content creators, so they can figure out what's going on in the industry and what we should go next in VR. At least that's.
Yeah, I mean, it's a new field, right? So it's a new medium. So there is a lot of exploration still to be had with it, and we see what we're seeing at SIGGRAPH is that there's a really broad, a lot of different applications of VR, from everything from storytelling to actual, augmented reality, where people are using, because sometimes when people say VR, it's becoming a very general term, and it means both, to most people, it means both virtual reality and augmented reality, right? Where you're taking computer graphics and overlaying it on top of live action. So we're seeing all types of different uses of that. It could be used for news. You could transport people to different worlds and tell news. You can do things. Probably my most poignant example of AR is, what if somebody comes into your house and they want to repair your refrigerator? Well, instead of going out to their truck and getting the manual about repairing your refrigerator, what if they can see inside of your refrigerator and see all the parts and recognize the model number just by putting on their glasses, right? And then a repairman can save a lot of time. So we're seeing a lot of those different types of technologies, and VR in itself and augmented reality, all of these rendering and graphics techniques, they came out of SIGGRAPH. I mean, SIGGRAPH really is the home of almost every computer graphics innovation currently in existence. So we get a lot of those minds and people together in order to discuss various solutions.
I think also, like in the short term, what we should expect is AR to keep arriving onto our phones in a way of like a camera application that you take a picture and it allows you to do things with that, and then from there you don't realize, but you will start having more and more and more features that mimic the AR experience that you have in mind of like wearing glasses and stuff. But this is in the long term. But in the short term, you're going to see these incremental things coming in your life, and becoming, you will become more dependent on these things, and you will see more and more people using them. But it will be very subtle. It's just constantly arriving over the next 5-10 years.
Do you see, either of you, the entertainment aspect being the driving force, or more of the commercial applications? For example, I was reading an interesting article on the surgical application of augmented reality, where the surgeons are using the equivalent of Google glasses, to throw not out to Google, where they are able to see examples of the type of procedure that they are currently involved in while they're in the middle of the process. So that would be a commercial application, as opposed to someone who is just putting on a pair of goggles so they can take a trip virtually. Right. So how do you see the market breaking out?
Yeah, I mean, I see it being used in all types of areas. One of the things is that I think we're still at the beginning of this new medium, right? And so the actual the headsets and the glasses are still priced out of many people's reach. The average person can't spend $2,000, right, to go buy a VR rig, right? They can't buy that at their house, right? So I think now you're going to see use of those technologies mostly in businesses, or maybe in special venues where people are paying a fee to use the glasses or the headsets, or maybe they are going to some concert that's in Italy, but they're going to go to it in San Francisco, where they're going to go to a venue and go to the concert, that they're going to be there virtually, right? I'm thinking that that's where we are now, because it's just the cost of the headsets. But I mean, in another 5 to 10 years, a lot of this can change, right? We're seeing, Sony PlayStation has a VR headset, right? That's a little bit more affordable. Still more expensive than most people would want to just pay, right? But as soon as the headsets become more cheaper, where the average person can have access to them, then I think Paul's exactly right. Is that it'll become just a natural part of what we do, and just part of the tool set. And maybe it'll be like a mouse, a keyboard in your headset, right? And that'll be what you'll be interacting with.
So the price point has to drop down to have wider adoption. At the same time, you both have to have the content creators, more people in the content creation side, which is both the artistic side and also the software side, and then additional people on the technology side developing more robust applications. That we see the market going.
Yeah. I mean, for sure. I'm at Cogswell College, and we see quite a few of our students getting hired into VR positions at companies that are not entertainment companies. So we had a student that was recently hired into Intel. We have another company that's trying to hire one of our students, and they're doing VR applications for cars, to visualize cars, right, to help sell cars. So I think that there definitely is a opportunity on the content creation side, and definitely on the developer side.
Okay. So in terms of turning back to SIGGRAPH 2017, what would you say is some of the more interesting exhibits that you envision people enjoying at the conference?
I think I'm actually really excited to see a venue that Denise has put together this year, the VR Village, which it had an insane amount of submissions this year. Like if you look at the statistics from maybe the last 3 years, it's just incredible. And yeah, and I've seen some of the maps and it looks amazing, and so I just really
Why don't you describe for us a little bit how that village is going to take place?
So we have the exhibit hall they'll be on one side of the convention center. Just right nearby will be the experience hall, and right when you enter the experience hall, you will walk through the VR theater, which is the venue that I was mentioning you, that is part of the Computer Animation Festival. And then on your left, you'll walk through, I believe it's more than 20 different installations that her and her team and herself has put together this year. Have selected this year. I mean, yeah. So yeah, it'll be, I think, really exciting venue. And obviously, like the technical paper section, I just saw the trailer that came out maybe a couple of weeks ago, and it looked really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, for me, there's a lot of things that are happening at SIGGRAPH that are really exciting. Probably the ones that stand out in my mind are, the makers of Pokemon Go are going to come and do a presentation. They're going to release a rare Pikachu, and my daughter's going to be there with me, so I just think that's cool, like to collect a rare Pikachu. And then we've got a live giraffe that we're bringing in for a drawing course. So I think that's really interesting. Any of these things that are different than what normally happens at SIGGRAPH that might be intriguing to people are interesting. There's a Syrian.
When you say a live giraffe,
yeah, a giraffe named Tiny, by the way. It's a giraffe named Tiny.
How else would you name a giraffe?
Yeah, so Otis College of Art and Design is bringing in one of their drawing instructors, and he's going to teach 2 or 3 courses on how to do observational drawing of a live giraffe, so animal drawing. So it's another interesting thing that a lot of our attendees, I think, will enjoy. If not being in the drawing class yourself, just watching, right, people draw a live giraffe and the giraffes there. It's pretty cool. There's another really interesting panel that I'm looking forward to. We had a Syrian company reach out to us. They're doing visual effects in Syria, and they wanted to do a talk on how to do visual effects in a war zone. And that, to me, is just like a really interesting thing. This actually happened before the whole travel ban, Trump travel ban thing came up, and so one of their founders is in New York. So he's in the United States. He's going to fly to SIGGRAPH, and the two of them are going to drive out of Damascus, Syria, to Beirut, and they're going to join us through Skype, through a video conference call. So I think that's going to be a really interesting panel to come through and see what types of things they have to say. So just, in addition to all of these, innovations in technology and computer graphics, there's going to be something that's just there, that's just like interesting for the average attendee to enjoy.
It's interesting that you mentioned that about the Syrian company, because it's a good illustration about how technology is without borders. Notwithstanding that some people would call it a travel pause,
right,
versus a travel ban, and we've seen the president's tweets on that this morning.
Right.
But it's interesting that we're going to have that aspect, and that's going to be something that people can see at the conference? Yeah,
the people can see at the conference, get to talk with them and see what's going on. I mean, so SIGGRAPH is an international organization. We do see our purpose as furthering computer graphics across the world, and a lot of the companies that we work with, they have sites and companies in other countries. We do like to, it's a very sort of family feeling at the conference. People welcome you into the fold, and they're happy to see you, and people that have been going to SIGGRAPH for years get back together. And so we do like to welcome people into our community, and we get a lot of different people from all over the world that attend SIGGRAPH. So that's part of our community, is to help people in other areas of the world that are interested in doing computer graphics, and just sort of further the industry as a whole.
Okay. On the technology side of developing computer graphics, have you seen any particular advances in perhaps the robustness of the workstations or any other of the hardware aspects of development?
Well, I mean, for me, I've seen a lot of the technology of the workstations. Well, this has been the most interesting thing to me, is that we've seen the power of the desktop move into many devices. We've seen the power of the desktop move into the laptop. We've seen the power of the laptop move into the phones, right? So you can do fairly high-end computer graphics on a variety of platforms. I think just about a year ago, we started to see VR laptops. Now that was almost unheard of, right? Before, you always had to buy a desktop, you always had to stick your $4 to $5 grand in it, but now you can get VR-ready laptops, you know? And there's a lot more rendering and computer graphics that are happening that are on actual graphics cards, you know? So there's a lot of new innovations that are happening, and I mean, those are some of the trends that I see. I mean, Paul actually does a lot of incredible work with interactive rendering, so I'd like for you to speak to this a bit.
I think, or if you look back maybe in the last 10 years or so, computer graphics, it feels like the computer graphics have become, it's a little bit of a commodity. Like, it's easy to make something. Doesn't mean like it's good or bad, like, but it is easy. You can just get a laptop and purchase a license of a product that will allow you to make, to communicate your story that you wanted to make, or to make your little short film, or to make VFX with your kids' videos that you take on your phone. So that has become really easy to make, and that's also because of the hardware, but also because software itself is easy nowadays to get a hold of. And I think, you know, we still use more advanced hardware in the professional world, but nowadays with the power of your phone and the power of your laptop, you can actually do most of the things we do in a professional environment.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's outstanding. I mean, I was at a VR conference about a month ago, and there were many people demoing their VR experiences on laptops. Which last year there was nobody doing that. Everybody had a desktop, right? And the high-end NVIDIA card, but it's happening on laptops.
Almost changed the economic model for movie creation, for example. So, if much more of the movie can be done on a green screen, like for our audience, we're actually on a green screen right now, and this table in front of us doesn't really exist. So the more that can be done in developing movies, I would imagine that can give greater opportunities for amateur filmmakers to break into the industry.
Yeah, and there also is a really big trend in filmmaking in general, in that, we're seeing so many films that are on Netflix, on Hulu, right? So there's so much film production that's happening like at a broadcast level. So, I mean, yeah, to me that just opens up more opportunity for more content, for more content creators, and just, for our, the technology people to start looking at the efficiencies in the pipeline, right? So that you can get more work out quicker.
And eventually they'll get to the point where they will be able to replace the talent I have here.
They're going to replace you. You're going to need like a lot of artificial intelligence. No, but I think there is something about about talent, right? The human nature, and even when you're creating computer-generated characters or doing performances, right? I mean, there's animators that are behind those characters, right? They're literally doing a performance, right? So they're not in the character, they're not the character, but they're making the character perform, right? So they're bringing that personality to it. So I think there is a lot of, the storytelling, right? So how is that? That's all driven through humans. I don't know if you're ever going to get, a computer to really do that in a way that, makes another human want to be around it, right? So.
Well, that's a good point. So at Pixar, you're really at the forefront of this whole movement, so it must give you an interesting perspective on some of the different aspects of the technology which is being displayed at SIGGRAPH. How do you deal with that intersection? I think like
So for me, going back to, I think like the first phrase that Jerome said today, like kind of like the intersection that you can see at SIGGRAPH between art and science, right? Like it is always a learning experience to attend SIGGRAPH and to see how far the industry has moved in just 12 months, to see the amount of content that gets generated, the depth of that content, to see people that have been preparing for that presentation for 4 years, that have been working on it for so long, and then they get to share that piece of their life and that contribution to the industry, and see how many people are willing to give back as well. Like when we see the amount of volunteers that run SIGGRAPH, that work for SIGGRAPH, it is kind of mind-blowing.
And how many people do you see usually attend the show?
Well, about 15,000 people will normally attend the show, so we have great attendance. I guess I just wanted to pick up on something that Paul was mentioning about when you go to SIGGRAPH, like what it's like. It's a really great experience. It's almost overwhelming. Like, I've never been to SIGGRAPH and felt like I knew everything. There is no way, because every year there's so many new things, and people have done things in ways you would have never thought to do them. Also, sometimes they've taken a solution that you knew about, but they've applied it in a way that you never would have thought about. And that's the thing. There's such a great opportunity to learn. You're always, 2 people away from somebody that's 10 times smarter than you are, and that's just a wonderful venue and environment to be in order to interact with these people. That's how my experience is. Everywhere I go, it's this amazing experience.
Totally, and I was going to say as well, like one of the things that struck me the most at the beginning when I first attended, it was the openness of the community too. Like, people are willing to share those things, whereas in other industries it might be a little bit more like reserved. That's my stuff. Like, I don't want to share it with anybody else just in case. But a lot of people are willing to share their research, but also their pains and their solutions, and to push this forward. 15 years ago it was quite different than today.
It's important. It's important so we actually do there's quite a lot of things that happen at SIGGRAPH that you really can only get at SIGGRAPH, because the companies don't want them to be recorded. The companies don't want it to be streamed, right? Because they just want to share it within the community. It's really unique. So there is a great opportunity just by going to SIGGRAPH that you can't really get anywhere else. And the companies and research institutes, they really do come and they talk about, what they did and how they were able to get it done, but also what problems they hit, right? And in every session there's opportunity for Q&A, so people ask questions and people often just answer them. It's not a conference where all the answers are, oh, I can't talk about that. The whole purpose and the whole feeling of the conference is to share in order to lift the industry. So it has a really unique, and I think part of that comes from it starting off as an academic conference. So it always has sort of that at the heart, that we're being collegial to each other, we're colleagues, and we're trying to help each other, and that's always been there.
So reflecting the push-pull between the need for the advancement of sciences through the cross-pollination of industry segments versus the intellectual property lawyers are all sitting there biting their nails to the trade secrets. All right, so
the attorneys would flip out if they came to SIGGRAPH.
Well, you can imagine that this will be a fantastic conference to go to. It will be July 30th through August 3rd in Los Angeles, SIGGRAPH 2017. Thank you, gentlemen. This has been a very interesting show today.
Thanks so much.
I'm Chris Graham, and this is Global Innovation. Thank you.